Okay. Okay, so this week's Torah portion is Parshas Emor. I just want to dedicate the class to a dear friend whose birthday is today. Her name is Penina Bas Devora, and her mother needs a refuah shlema, so refuah shlema for Devora Bas Yehudis. Okay. Thank you all for being here today. So in this week's Torah portion, it speaks about the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog. And you're going to ask yourself, why are we going to have a teaching about that? Sukkos is far away. We just finished Pesach. It's like 6 months away. Why are we learning this today? Yes. Yes. So in Emor, it speaks about the holidays. But although it's about the Daled Minim, the Lulav and the Esrog and the Hadasim and Aravos, so this class, it's very appropriate to have it outdoors with all this greenery. There's a lesson, there's such an amazing, incredible lesson for every single day of the year, not just for Sukkos. And especially, the lesson that we're going to take is about Aravos Yisrael, to love every Jew. And especially now, when we're in the time of Sfiras HaEmer, the time that we're working on ourselves to become better people. We have Lag BaOmer coming in less than 2 weeks, where we increase, and especially this entire time in Aravos Yisrael, because Rabbi Akiva's students were dying because they didn't have enough respect for each other. So therefore, this time of the year, we're increasing our Aravos Yisrael to love every single Jew unconditionally. And this is what we're going to gain from this class. Okay, so there is a poem. It's not done. It's 95% done. I was hoping to finish the poem in the car and the Uber on the way here. The Uber driver is from Cherry Hill and wanted to know if there's a lot of Orthodox people here. And he said, that he knows Chabad in Cherry Hill. So that was the end of, yeah, I didn't have Shabbos. I didn't have my regular bag with me, but I told him the whole teaching on the way here. So you never know who the Uber driver is going to be. Okay.
I heard a story where someone had an Uber driver. He met someone and he ended up putting on film. So
wow. Yeah, you always have to be prepared. You always have to be prepared.
Start having fun with you.
It's not. You should know my sister-in-law, Chani Feldman, but her mother, Mrs. Kaplan, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago. She was amazing. Although she was a woman, Ramivtza Tfillin, wherever she was, she always found a guy to go with her, and she made sure through her so many men had the opportunity to put on tefillin, because all the stories people were saying after she passed away that she was like the queen of tefillin, even though she was a woman. You could always get your husband to put tefillin on, get a brother, a son. There's no excuses. Yeah, so every mitzvah is every opportunity. We have to take every opportunity to help another Jew perform another mitzvah. Hi, Dorit. Okay, so here we go. In this week's parsha, the mitzvah is given that when Sukkos comes around, we should take the Daled Minim. The Daled Minim are the 4 species, or the 4 kinds. For each of the 4 kinds, the Torah gives a description, but only for 3 of them is the description a necessary condition. That means for 3 out of the 4 minim of Daled Minim, the Torah gives specific instructions of what you have to use, what you could use and what you can't use. But then for one of them, there's a difference. We don't have a specific description of what we actually have to use when we make the bracha of the 4 kinds, and we're going to see what they are and why. This is where our starting point. Okay, the first one is the Esrog. The Esrog must be a fruit of a tree. Beauty is its key quality. So the Esrog has to be obviously from the tree, and it has to be beautiful. An Esrog that's shriveled up is not kosher to use for the Daled Minim. Next, the lulav comes from a palm tree that produces dates so fine. Its leaves must be brought together and bound with its spine. So a lulav, if the lulav is like a fan, if it's all spread out like a fan, it's puzzle. You can't use it. The branches have to be all together. They have to be all together. They're like almost like forced together and closed. And therefore, we actually put rings around the lulav to keep the branches closed. That's what makes a lulav kosher. And it has to come from a tree that produces dates. Number 3, the Hadasim are branches of a braided tree. From each node, there must emerge leaves 3. So the Hadasim, there are so many leaves on the Hadas that you don't even see the stem. From every point, 3 leaves have to come out in order for it to be kosher. So those are the first 3 things that the Torah speaks about, and very, very specific what it has to be in order for us to use it. Comes to the 4th one, the willow. And what does it say? The Aravos are willows that grow by the river. But if this type of willow grows in the wilderness or hilly terrain, it is still kosher. So the willows is the only one that although the Torah calls it willows that grow by the river, arve nachal, if your willow that you're going to use on Sukkos is coming from your backyard, where there's no water, where there's no stream, where there's no brook, or if it's coming from a desert or a hilltop or whatever it is, it's still kosher. So the Torah is describing the willow by its species. It's saying why? Because most willows, the majority of willows, grow by the water. So if you have a willow that's the same type of willow that usually grows by the water in your backyard, you could use it.
Not so specific.
It's not so specific. It's not talking about the when it says arve nacha, when it says willows that grow by the river, it's not telling you that the willow that you're holding in your hand to make the bracha has to actually come from the river, from near the river. It could be a willow of that type, of that species. It could come from somewhere else, as long as it's that type. So all the 3 other minim that we spoke about, it was very, very specific. It didn't just say, a fruit from a citron tree, from a Esrog tree. No, it was very specific. It had to be a Esrog that's beautiful. And everything was very, very specific. It wasn't talking about the species in general. This is the type from which we have to take, but rather it was very, very specific. But with the willow, it's not specific at all. It's talking about the general type of species, and it's not describing what you actually have to hold in your hand when you make the bracha. So the question is why? Why the difference? Why is the willow singled out, where it's not describing the willow that you're actually holding in your hand, but rather it's just that you're actually using for the mitzvah, but rather it's describing the species in general. Okay, why does the Torah describe where the species of willows grows usually, instead of describing the willow branch that will be taken to perform the mitzvah actually? Now, so you could answer, you could say, oh, in the Torah, it says arve nachal, willows, and it's in plural tense. So you could say because in the Torah it's in plural tense, so it's in trying to include more than one location, and therefore, so it is being specific. But no, the Rebbe says no. The reason why arve nachal, the reason why it's in plural tense in the pasuk, is to teach you that you need more than one willow when you make the bracha. You actually need 2 willows. So the plural is not here to talk about different locations, but it's here to talk about plural, that you need 2 willows to make the bracha. And it's already self-understood Arve Nachal, it's self-understood that it's talking about the species of willows because the majority of willows grows by the river. And we're left with our question of why the other three is very, very specific about what you're actually holding in your hand to actually make the bracha, while the willows is much more open-ended, and it's just talking about the species and not, it's describing a willow that's by the river when you're not necessarily holding a willow in your hand that came from the river. So why the difference? Why the distinction? The fact that willows in the plural form is written is not to include willows in another location, but rather to tell us that for the mitzvah, 2 willows must be taken. Okay, so there are concepts in Torah that can only be understood fully when the inner dimensions of the Torah we study. Okay, so there are 4 different ways to learn Torah. You have Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said. And then you have Chassidus. So there are some things in Torah that if you just look at them from the surface, from the Pshat level, you will not find a sufficient answer for the distinction. Only if you go deeper, only if you delve deeper into the deeper levels of Torah learning and Chassidus, will you come to a satisfactory explanation and answer for this question. So first we're going to go into the Medrash, and then we're going to go even deeper into Chassidus to answer this question. Okay. There are concepts in Torah that can only be understood fully when the inner dimensions of the Torah we study. The Medrash explains that the 4 species that the Torah does choose represents 4 different types of Jews. Okay, I'm just curious, who knew this from before, that the 4 species represents 4 types of Jews? You've heard this before? Amazing.
Maybe it was from you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was from you.
Maybe we actually hear what you said.
I'm sorry. I'm
We
not
listen
that
from here.
I only know stuff from here.
Okay.
I don't want to be like I know.
Okay, so I always thought that this came from Chassidus, but I learned today that it actually comes from the Medrash. So everyone should know this. So here we go. Okay, so there are 2 different things that we learn from the 4 types. One is if you look, it's amazing how in Torah everything comes down so practical and everything is so visual. So from the 4, you're talking about, a kidney donor, like from these 4 different things that grow, just from their shape, we learn about different parts of our body and how we're supposed to use our entire body to serve Hashem. So the Esrog is shaped like a heart. The Lulav is shaped like a spine. The Hadasim are shaped like eyes. The Aravos are shaped like lips. And we are supposed to use our entire body, our spine, our lips, our eyes, our heart, all to serve Hashem. That's one teaching. Another teaching, which is the Medrash, which is what we're going to speak about today, is that these 4 types represent 4 different types of Jews. The Esrog, we'll start with the Esrog. The Esrog has a good taste. I don't know if you ever tried, but you can make Esrog jam. Has anyone ever tasted Esrog jam?
Yeah.
You could make jam out of an Esrog, and it has a great taste. Also, if you smell a Esrog, the Esrog has a very good smell as well. This represents a Jew who both learns Torah and does good deeds. Why? Torah is compared to food. Torah nourishes us. So something that has a good taste represents a Jew who learns Torah. But Torah, when you learn Torah, if you're learning just for yourself, just like I can't eat for you. Everyone has to eat for themselves, right? So every person learns Torah and we teach Torah, but everyone has to ingest and absorb the Torah on their own. But then there's a mitzvah. When you do a good deed, that is compared to a good smell. Because when you do something nice for someone, it just spreads and spreads and spreads. You do a favor for one person, you give someone a smile, and that smile just, goes on all day and forever. There's a book about that for kids. Something about a catchy smile. How even though it was raining and one person, it was raining and muddy, and the kid is going on the school bus and tripped in the mud, but just a smile from another child, the whole ripple effect of the whole day, how one person smiles at the next person and how that makes everyone's day. So a good deed is compared to a good smell because it has, yes.
It's a kid's book. You know that kid's book. I
Yeah.
can find it somewhere. But we think it's a kid's book. Like, it's really not. It's an adult book.
Absolutely. Sometimes when we read a kid's book, then it hits home for the child inside of us. So a good smell that represents good deeds. So now we have the lulav. The lulav comes from a date, from a palm tree, that grows dates. Dates have a good taste, but they don't have a good smell. A person who's a lulav represents a Torah scholar, someone who only learns Torah. But in mitzvahs, that's not his thing. He's busy. He's locked in his shul, studying Torah all day, but he can't be bothered to do a favor for someone else. Then we have the Hadasim. Hadasim have a very good smell. They don't taste like anything. They just have a good smell. That represents a Jew who does acts of goodness and kindness. He's very kind, does a lot of mitzvahs, but he doesn't have the head to learn Torah. And then you have the Aravos. The Aravos have neither. Doesn't have a good taste, doesn't have a good smell. But they are very, very necessary as well. Represents a Jew who doesn't even have a clue that he's Jewish. He doesn't learn Torah. He doesn't do mitzvahs. It's called a tinok shenishba, a child that was kidnapped. He didn't grow up in a Jewish environment. He didn't go to a Jewish school. He didn't grow up with a Shabbos and kosher in his house. It's as if he was taken captive by the non-Jews, and it's not his fault. He doesn't learn Torah. He doesn't do mitzvahs. He's an Arava. This is the fourth type of Jew. Okay, I'll just read it in rhyme. The Esrog, which has both taste and smell, represents a Jew who has Torah.
It sounds
And-
like the Haggadah, almost.
That God has four sons.
This is very similar how you're describing.
Okay, the Shene Delisha. Okay, there is similarity. Okay, so there is similarity, both 4 and 4.
But no, it's something. It's just something that.
Yeah, just comes to mind. Absolutely. Okay, the Esrog, which has both taste and smell, represents a Jew who has Torah and good deeds as well. A Lulav, which has a taste because of its dates so sweet, but has no fragrance at all, represents a Jew who has Torah, but with regards to good deeds, he dropped the ball. The Hadas, which has fragrance, but isn't tasty, represents a Jew who has good deeds, but no Torah so holy. The willow has no taste and no fragrance, it is true. It represents a Jew who has neither Torah nor good deeds in view. Okay, so before I continue, I'll just tell you a story. When the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was still alive and was the Rebbe, and our Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was his son-in-law. He wasn't the Rebbe yet. There was an elevator in 770. His father-in-law was upstairs, and the Rebbe came out of the elevator, and there were two Hasidim, two yeshiva students who were in the lobby in the area over there, when you come in through the doors of 770, the upstairs part. And the Rebbe said, "I just came from speaking to my father-in-law. Do you want to hear what I just learned?" So of course the two Bachrim said yes. And the Rebbe said as follows. He said this was right after the war, and there were a lot of immigrants that came to America, And a lot of them dropped their Yiddishkeit because they were so, we don't have to explain. They went through so much in the Holocaust. And the Rebbe was very welcoming. He welcomed them and he showed them love and gave them attention. And there were people that had a taina, they had a complaint. And they said, why are you bringing these people close if they dropped Yiddishkeit? So the Rebbe said, I went to my Rebbe, to the Frierdiker Rebbe, to ask him this question: if my approach is the right approach to welcome these Jews who left Yiddishkeit behind. And he says, the Frierdiker Rebbe said to me, a parent loves every single child. But if God forbid, a child has special needs, the parent loves them even more and gives them even more attention and spends even more time with them. So a Jew who's an Arava, or a Jew who doesn't learn Torah, or a Jew who didn't have an opportunity to get a Jewish education, we have to love them even more, to give them even more attention and be closer to them. So what does it mean, special needs? Spiritually special needs. A Jew whose arm didn't have an opportunity to put on tefillin, it's like then their arm that has special needs because it didn't have the opportunity to be uplifted with tefillin, and so forth. So the Rebbe, he had this approach, and his father-in-law told him that absolutely this is the right way to go. That we have to someone who didn't have the opportunity is someone that we need to show more love and more attention and draw them in closer and give them more love and a tighter hug and be even kinder to them because as every parent would for their special needs child.
You know what? It's so interesting because I was just telling somebody, like, my dream is to like everybody should love each other more, and you can't change the world. You can only change one person at a time, and the ripples. And we always talk about the ripple effect that you're having on your family, and then if you teach that to your kids, and when you see them acting that way, and it's like, yeah, and it reaches. You don't know where it reaches.
Yeah, we're great.
Oh,
Amazing. She's wearing a Chabad sweater.
Oh. So cool.
Okay, so what's the difference between the first three species and the willow? The first three species represent three types of Jews with whom we unite because they all have revealed virtues in sight, while the willow represents a person whose only virtue is that at his core he is a Jew, a descendant of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov Avinu. Welcome. Okay. Okay, so what's the difference between the first three and the fourth? The Esrog and the Lulav and the Hadasim, right? You're able to see with your eyes in a revealed way the special thing about them. This one learns Torah, this one does good deeds, this one does both. You're able to see in a revealed way their good quality. But with a Arava, there's nothing on the outside. There's nothing to see in a revealed way. You can't see their virtue. What's their only virtue? Their virtue is the fact that they're a Jew. Their essence. That's what they could contribute. On the outside, you don't see anything. You don't see their maila. You don't, in a revealed way, you don't see that their specialness, their uniqueness. You don't see it. You don't. But what does the Arava have? What does the Arava have? For the Arava, you have to dig deeper. The Arava, what is the Arava bringing to the table? The essence of a Jew. What's great about the Arava? What's great about the Arava is that he is a descendant of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That he is a Jew, and from that core is so much greater than anything you could just see on the outside. Now you dug so deep. You dug so deep. How can you compare essence to something that's revealed on the surface? You dug all the way deep down, and what is the Maila of the Arava? The only Maila is the greatest Maila, which is his essence. The fact that he's a Jew, the fact that he comes from Av Yitzchak and Yaakov. Okay, now this difference. Okay, this difference, the difference between revealed good qualities and a hidden essence. This difference involved into halacha. For the first three species, the Torah describes exactly what we take for the mitzvah. But a willow that doesn't grow near water, which represents Torah, is perfectly fit, representing a Jew who didn't grow up in a Jewish environment. So when you say the Aravos are growing near the water, what's water? Water is Torah. Even a willow that didn't grow near the water, he didn't grow up in an environment of Torah. He grew up in the desert, in the hilltop, some rickety, some on top of some mountain full of rocks. That Arava is perfectly kosher to use. And we're just talking about the species. We're not talking, it doesn't have to be the Arava by the water. Because the Arava represents the Jew who didn't have that opportunity. And he's perfectly fit. Arava from the desert is perfectly fit. And therefore the Torah doesn't say specifically, you must have an Arava from the water. The Torah just tells you about the species. One that the Arava that the species comes from the water, that grows near the water, which means as long as the Jew, he may be in the desert, but as long as his ancestors, as long as where he comes from, the source is Av Yitzchak and Yaakov, the source is the water, that's perfectly good enough. And that's why it doesn't specifically tell you that the Aravos have to come from the water. And the Aravos is so important. You see, growing up or living in Brooklyn and Lakewood and Toms River, we take it for granted. Daled Minim, not a big deal. 20 years ago, when my daughter Mushka was 3 months old, my husband and I and Mushka had the opportunity to go to Shanghai, China for Sukkos. The Chabad Rabbi and the Rebbetzin was due to give birth, and so she was going to Hong Kong to have a baby, and we took over for 3 weeks. And we brought with us the Esrog and the Lulav and the Hadasim, but the Aravos, it didn't pay to bring because by the time we came before Yom Kippur, bringing Aravos before Yom Kippur, it wouldn't last till Sukkos. So the rabbi said, no problem, we'll get you Aravos in China. It's not a big deal. We'll find it over there. It's not a problem. We came to Shanghai. We were there for Yom Kippur, and Sukkos is approaching. And guess what? There were no Aravos nearby that we could use. They had I don't remember all the details, but basically the Chabad rabbi arranged that the Aravos, wherever they were, that should be sent to us. But now, and they were going to be sent to us, and they were arriving on Yantif. So the Sukkos, after we lit candles that first night, my husband didn't go to sleep because he's waiting for the delivery of the Aravos. This is China. It's not.
It's China. There's no China. You can't make Aravos.
There weren't any China. There weren't any Aravos in. There weren't any Aravos growing. It had to be growing. No, that was before we came here. It was before we came here, like 3 years before we came here. Anyway, in middle of the night, I don't know, midnight, I don't know. And you have to understand that the foreigners live like in a gated area, and there's a guard. And my husband doesn't know Chinese. And they come at midnight with the Aravos with the delivery, and they want us to sign for it. And my husband can't speak Chinese. He went on the floor and he did this. Please. He needed that they should relinquish the Aravos. Well, we got the Aravos, but the Aravos, it wasn't the Esrog that we didn't have. The Aravos, the one with no taste and no smell, without it, we could not do the mitzvah. And it wasn't just us, it was the entire community. None of us could have done it without the Aravos. and we had to beg, whatever it was. But then, by the
something like that.
yeah, we had to wait for the Aravos, and even when we in the airport, when you put your, I mean, this was 20 years ago, but they question, what is this? What are you bringing? Foreign, there's such a Lulav. So even in New York, when we left from New York, they were questioning us, and then this big guy comes over and he says, "Don't you know this is a Jewish holiday?" They were all having a discussion about what we're trying to take with us.
Right.
Yeah. We brought it. I don't know how we got it through. We got it through.
Also like 10 frozen 1 year.
Well, Connie,
Wow.
I'm curious, you're allowed to receive a package in Yom Kippur? Can I open my Amazon?
Well, this I think there was a difference in this case.
Something about something for Yom Tov itself.
That's what I'm curious, because I always like wait for the power to
You order something, you need to. We had. I was in the Raleigh for Yom Tov, and one of my boys forgot to bring the shoes, whatever. So I ordered Amazon and at the second day, if it's driving, whatever, the second day it's Yom Tov, and I used for Yom Tov, then
You're not opening it?
something. Boy was helping me talk about whatever was left to use. Yeah. So, but it's. But for Shabbat, for sure, you should.
I thought it was like a big no, but now.
Usually mail we're not supposed to open, but I guess this was an exception. It was probably ordered to come earlier, but everything was delayed, and it could have been a so guess what? First of all, there were actually Israelis, a lot of Israelis that came. They would come for 5 to 7 years for business. And we met a lot of Israelis there. We made a sukkah out of bamboo. It was like real bamboo, and we went to the market and we bought material. Huge sukkah. And I was newly married. I had a 3-month-old baby, and mikvah was still a struggle. And this woman came over to me, this one in Shanghai, China, and she said, "Connie, would you take me to the mikvah?" I said, "Mikvah? Where's there a mikvah?" There was no mikvah there at the time. I drove with her for 2 hours, and Mushka was in the car seat. We drove for 2 hours to the ocean, and she jumped into the ocean. And after that experience, I said, I will never complain again. What is it? Yeah, but it was, and I remember taking a picture. I took a picture of Mushka, baby Mushka, 3 months old, in the car seat with the background of the ocean, so that in 20 years I should be able to tell her, but it wasn't an easy thing to do. There were big, huge boats. The water was black. It wasn't a spa or anything like it. But and this woman, she wasn't religious. She was not religious. And she said, I said, "What makes you do this? What makes you do this?" And she said, "This is our tradition. This is our tradition." And it was incredible. Incredible to see. It was incredible to. She was from a kibbutz. It was incredible. It was. I don't remember.
I was on a ski lift, and they were all going, "Okay, what time is Shabbos? It's like 4 o'clock. We're out of here. Whatever it is." They're very strict about mikvah, and then some of them are strict about Shabbos also, but they're very strict about mikvah.
It was so incredible. It was such a lesson for me. Such a lesson for me. My husband always would say this, you have, some of us are lucky enough to be born from the cradle into a religious home, religious lifestyle, but it's not just when you're driving a car, it's not just about how fast you're going. It's also when you put yourself, with the effort, when you put your foot on the gas, the acceleration, it's not just about where you land, it's the effort, how much effort it took to get there. So even, as a 21-year-old, yes, mikvah was a challenge, but for someone who was not religious, who was doing it just because Hashem said so,
Getting a lot more.
and to jump into the ocean, it was just, it was incredible. It was incredible, the effort that they took, and 2 hours each way. And it wasn't just a one-time thing either. And then in the winter months, you would have to actually fly in an airplane to go to the mikvah. But ultimately, very soon after, she did become pregnant. She did have a baby. So that was an incredible experience just to witness that. You have to be very humble. As from Jews, you have to be very humble to realize the struggle of the people that weren't born on the mountain, that climbed the mountain.
But the question is, if you can elevate it, you can have an intention to elevate.
You want to say something? Yeah.
I can't believe it. You climb this mountain. It took me forever. The training and there for look at them just having one here.
That's right.
Oh wow, that is exactly right. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so cute.
I'm from Soviet Union.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
that's crazy.
We have a lot of countries here. We have Ukraine, we have Russia,
I'm saying Soviet
we have
Union and for the whole country, northern region, whatsoever.
But I think the Rebbe had something interesting about that.
yes. Right. Incredible.
My grandmother was the boss graduated class from the was born in 1923.
Wow.
They studied everything, every subject. And it was
Same with my grandpa.
lots of work for students.
Wow.
So from Midwest. Where are they? And I'm so pleased by it.
Everyone got the matzah somehow. Wow. Incredible.
Oh, part of
So someone once said, I went to a shiur. She was also an amazing woman. And she got a ride in with a taxi driver who had a picture of the Rebbe. And the taxi,
I met
and she kind of, you talk to the Uber driver, then she was talking to the Russian taxi driver.
and I
And she
told
said,
my
what
niece
is
one
that? She
kid,
goes,
right?
I came
But
from
I met my
Russia.
mom.
And I went to the Rebbe.
Oh,
And he
God.
said,
My mom like
I could, but
I'm
now you're
trying
free.
to like.
You want to go see my kid?
I'll
Yeshiva,
you don't care?
yeshiva, boys. I think he, Chaim B'Lein, like raised them in the Catholic area, whatever it was, and he was telling her that now my boys are like good yeshiva boys. You know,
Amazing. And the Rebbe, the Rebbe saw all this. The Rebbe sent yeshiva boys to far out places in Russia to strengthen the communities. There's a book that I have at home. It's in Hebrew. It's called Abba. My son-in-law gave it to me for my birthday. When I started reading it, and it describes two yeshiva boys coming to this place that was a 12-hour train ride from Moscow, and how they opened the yeshiva, and they would how they would teach. They opened the yeshiva, and the boys would come to learn, and there was an interpreter that would interpret everything that the yeshiva boys were saying, although their goal was, they came for 3 months. Their goal was that by the time they would leave, they'd be able to speak Russian. But in the meantime, they had an interpreter. And she was a older woman, a babi, who spoke Yiddish, was able to translate into Russian for the young Jewish Russian boys. And she was called upon to be the interpreter at all hours, because they would have farbrengens all night. And then the farbrengen could be over at 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. was Tanya class. There were no breaks, or very short breaks. And I remember reading that after a long farbrengen, so they're learning Tanya. So the boys open up the second parak of Tanya, and it says that every Jew has a godly soul. A chelek alekami mal mamish, an actual part of God inside of them. And so the yeshiva boy says this, and he's waiting for the bubby to interpret it, to tell it to the Russian boys. And she says, she's arguing with him. She says, I can't say that. What does that mean? And all the boys are curious what's going on. But he had to convince her that he actually meant what he was saying, that and the boys are fighting back in Russian through the interpreter, and they're saying, what do you mean we have an actual part of God inside of us? Do you know the sins that we've done? And they're listing their sins of what they did. These, teenage, kids in their young 20s, all the sins that they did. How can you say that we have a chelek alekami mal mamish? We have an actual part of God inside of us. It describes this, and everyone, by the time they left, the entire community, everyone knew that every single Jew has an actual part of God inside of them. And when they would say this when they were trying to explain this Tanya to the boys at first, they didn't accept it. They said it's impossible. So the Bachrim, they realized that they're not making headway with this. So they'll take a different topic. And the next night they're having a farbringen, and they were talking to the boys about having a bris milah. They never had an opportunity to have a bris milah. They're in their 20s. And how do you approach it?
A few friends from Russian from the community from Philadelphia with some friends, and they brought two couples. And one of them, the wife is much more. It was actually said the first Shabbos that didn't touch the phone. She like really a big thing. But the husband never had a bris. He kind of missed the window, whatever. The mother like, we have to make a bris, let's make a bris. I said, yeah, but how do you can't just bring it up on, it's not like light a candles, because it's a very big difference. So how do you
Okay, so I don't know how they brought it up, but they spoke about it for an entire night.
Do you remember when the Russians came to have dresses? You were too young.
No, I do remember. There's a woman from another class in Lakewood that her father was very involved with that, and he runs a camp called the Manachai, and they do a lot of brising for the children that for the teens there. So anyway, these Bachrim, they were very brave, and they said they said, let's try to get 10 of you to take upon yourself to have a bris milah. Or they said, I don't remember exactly all the details. Basically, by the time one person raised his hand, and throughout the night, one by one, these people committed to have a bris milah, like a fundraiser. And by the time,
yeah, they did a lot of brises for like teenagers and young adults.
They want to appreciate it.
wow,
Older Russian people.
wow. Oy vey.
I will never forgive you.
Wow.
So we take for granted so many things.
We take for granted so many things. When 8 days old, the baby can't go. Wow. So Ali's saying 3 years old, give her son a bris milah. That's amazing. So anyway, by the time the night was over and they had 9 or 10, I don't know, it was 9 or 10 people that committed to have a bris milah, they started dancing as if it was Simchas Torah. They had a celebration like Simchas Torah because these men, these boys all agreed to have a bris milah. Now to have a bris milah for them was a big deal because the closest mile was in Moscow, 12-hour train ride to Moscow. And after 3 months, these boys left, and one by one, these men actually did have a bris milah. And that very night, when you have a bris milah, you also get to have a Jewish name. So they took a hat and they wrote in the hat all the names of the Chabad Rebbeim. And every person picked the name of what their Jewish name is gonna be. And there was one man that left Russia shortly after, and he made Aliyah to Israel, and he didn't end up having a bris, although he had made that commitment. A year later, he got in touch with another Chabad rabbi, And the other Chabad rabbi said to him, listen, you made this promise, you got to do it. And he agreed a year after he had made that commitment. And he has the bris milah. The male is giving him a bris milah, and the male says, what Jewish name do you want? And he couldn't remember the name on the paper because it was a year later and he felt so bad. So what's the male supposed to do? He has to give a name right now. He says, I'll give you the same name that I have. And that was the name on his paper. All of a sudden, he remembered that was the name on his paper. And for those of you who read Hebrew, I could bring the book next time and I could pass it around. But so I'm saying we should the people that didn't have the Jewish education, we have to hold them on a pedestal for their effort, for their sacrifice. Yeah, for us, there's so much that we do is out of rote because we did it yesterday, because we were born with it, because we're used to it, because it's part of it's a habit already. But
Hope with that, because you you guys have like all the tools. Yes, like all the information, everything. Then comes a person like me that yes has all information, but it's not religious skill, right? So how do you feel when a person comes in and how do you make that comfortable for you? Because you obviously know all the rules, everything, and you do it like it's nothing, right? And then this person comes in. Isn't it uncomfortable? Like I feel like I don't belong anywhere.
So we admire your just the fact that you have the courage to walk through the door.
That's what she said. Everybody should have this attitude. We're working it, but everybody surrounded here have this attitude because we are learning from Chani. That we are admire people and look up to, and we want to, help you and surround you with love. And we hope the rest of the Jewish people should also learn to have this attitude. But we try one person at a time, to enlarge this circle of people which are accepting.
You pick small things, like if you find it easy to like candles. I once went to something, so this guy says, if you want to light candles, light it when the whole world's lighting it, and then go out to dinner. Like,
I do
don't,
that
no, I'm not talking about your thing.
actually do
That's
myself,
what he
so
was saying,
I
because I
understand
remember
what you're
thinking, I'm
saying.
always a few minutes late.
Yeah.
So when he said it, I even concentrated, and I come from this, right? So it's just like concentrating on that kind of thing. You take one step at a time. If you,
Well,
I'm gonna make it
yeah,
happen.
right, because I
Esty
wanted
wants to make it happen.
but,
What's your name?
Guido or Gloria,
Guido.
yeah, Guido.
Oh, you were here once.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's your mom. You were here once.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm Esty. I just want to say hi. That we also have that kind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We also have that kind of fear. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's not like from. So we're like, just what you're feeling, we're feeling. So know that your mirror is our mirror. So don't feel any
like, oh, you feeling like we're too much, and then whatever, or
But I guess when she's the one and we're the many, that's when, when she comes into it. When you go to their community, we feel the same way as them.
Yes, I understand.
Go ahead, Ali.
Russian part of the college.
We moved to New Jersey. Some people became, and now I'm surrounded by twin families. I told my best friend, he was in Bishop. I don't know what to do. Everybody's moving on. I'm the last of the Mexicans, I think. I don't know. Told me something very well. So do you remember how welcome the neighbors were that day? There were a lot of twin people in the neighborhood, and everybody was so nice. Because you are also nice person. Why would they be mean to you? They said that's the neighborhood.
Yeah, like you
So
said.
think about 30 years ago and be grateful that Jewish people are moving and not people who are moving and to move right now, So the same Ocean Park is going to be moving to the neighborhood. And it's helping so much, and I'm sick.
Very good.
Good for you.
So I hope that that you are lucky because we had a full boy. They all had to do it. So they all were bar mitzvah. So it's a lot of things to connect to.
Mm-hmm. And I think is that we're learning. You might look at us and say, "Oh, we were born into it," but I'm always learning. You know, and I'm also learning that we're love everyone because what I stand for, my truth is to love everyone. And it can't make everyone love
you a hug. I want to hug you. I have a few people that I'm learning about Tshuva, different stages, whatever.
Right.
And I always tell them, I learned from you so much more than, I'm not more, whatever. As much as you learn from me, I learn from you because your commitment to every little thing and the bright eyes, the excitement of every little thing that you learn, which I take for granted because I was, born on the mountain. And you're excited about little things. It brings me new excitement to my life, to my Yiddishkeit. So this is priceless. So we need to be in contact. We need our communities to integrate each other because we take it for granted being on the mountain sometimes. And we need fresh eyes, someone that climbs the mountains like you. And this
Well, I try to
You are
climb the mountains,
climbing.
but unfortunately, my husband did not want to climb with me.
You
So
are
I had
doing
to
one step at a
adapt
time.
to what.
You're here. You're
I
here
asked
today.
the rabbi, hey, what should I do? I want to be religious, but I can't because my husband doesn't. Because when then you have to pick, right? Do you want to be with your family? And my brother is also very religious, so I was put like in a middle situation.
But look, you're here today.
And
That's
I'm
it. Every
here
little step.
today,
That
yes,
counts. Every
with a
little
lot
step
of
counts.
effort.
That's
Yes.
Okay.
The effort more than anything counts. A big effort. more than
Absolutely.
anything counts.
Yes, it's true.
Yes.
So I'll just give another example to say what you're saying. If a person is in their house and they're thirsty, just go to the sink, open it up, get a cup of water, put some ice in, and you're good to go. A hot day. But if you're in the desert and there's no water and you're walking in the desert for 3 days and then you see a cup of water, oh boy, do you appreciate it. So someone that the same thing as born on the mountain, when you see someone that had to work for it and how much they appreciate it when they come from, when they come from the secular world and they come in and they say, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to have been brought up, to have been given a Torah education. So we have to really be grateful for what we have and appreciate the Aravos and appreciate the sacrifice and appreciate everyone for what they bring to the table because when you see essence, in front of you, it's so much greater than the revealed attribute that you bring.
No, but why didn't you call me? I really work with him.
Exactly. It's so much. Exactly.
But most of the world
No, but
appreciate,
now it's a big
most of at least the communities we live in appreciate the mountain, born on the mountains. Why? But why? Why is that the struggle? Like most of the communities appreciate being born on the mountain. Not getting to the mountain.
Most awareness. Many take for granted and only those that like to start to appreciate. If you don't,
No, but day to day, when you're like having to get your kids into, I'm past it a little bit. Like getting my kids into school. Like I have only one kid in grade school right now. It's great. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the things that used to maybe bother me don't bother me anymore. So I'm okay to say like, okay, well, whatever. But when you're living in it and it does bother you that your neighbor could say, oh, I'm not letting my kid come, your sister's coming, I'm not letting my kid come to interact with your sister because she's not from. It's like a stab, literally like a stab with a knife, So how do you deal
So
with
here's the
that?
next paragraph. Listen to this. There is so much in a name. Arava, Ayin Reish Vez Hey. Arava has the letters that are the same as I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Arava is ayin reish, aleph or ayin?
Ayin.
Hey.
There's another word which is Ve'arva. Ve'arva is a verse that says Ve'arva, the offerings of Yehuda. Ve'arva means it shall be pleasant to Hashem. So Arava has the same letters, which means pleasant. So from all the 4 types, the one that's most pleasant to Hashem is the Arava. But, like we say, Baharev, no, Baharev, that means pleasant. Okay, as Ve'arva, which means, here, there is so much in a name. Arava has the letters that are the same as Ve'arva, which means pleasant to Hashem. A Jew who is compared to an Arava is a precious gem. The lesson is that just like we need each type bound together to get the mitzvah done right, with even a simple Jew, we must connect for so that the simplicity of Atzmos we can get. Atzmos means essence. If you want to touch the essence of God, the essence of God is simple in form. If you want to be able to touch the essence of God, then you have to bond with another Jew, a simple, what you would put in quotes, a simple Jew. When you bond with a simple Jew, you are touching essence. You're touching the essence of God. It's an incredible thing. A person who's religious thinks, if I go out of my way to teach another person, I'm doing the effort. I'm helping someone else. But what you don't realize is that when you touch someone else's soul, you're getting the greatest benefit because you are touching essence. And the Kohen Gadol, who would light the menorah, and the menorah represents us lighting the candle of every single Jew, lighting the flame, lighting the soul of every single Jew. The Kohen Gadol, to light the menorah, would stand on 3 steps. When you're taking the time, you think you're lighting someone else's soul, guess what? You're the one that's getting the elevation because you're standing on 3 steps to light the other person's soul. You're touching, you're playing with fire. You're touching, when you encourage another person who's not as observant as you, you are touching the essence of Hashem. The essence of Hashem. When we're our day-to-day, we're just on the surface. I learn Torah, I do a mitzvah, it's all revealed. But when something is revealed, it's surface. When something is hidden, it's deep, it's very, very deep. So the good qualities, that's on the surface. That's on the surface and it's great. But when someone doesn't have the good qualities that are just in broad daylight in view, and you have to go deeper and see, it's not about what they do, but it's about who they are. You search for who they are. You touch the essence, and that's how you touch the essence of God. That's how you touch Atzmos, when you take the time to help a simple Jew. Okay. There's a difference that is key in the way that we bind ourselves with a simple person versus the other 3. People that have the potential to possess virtues that all can see must presently possess Torah and good deeds in actuality. But when we have the opportunity to bring a Jew close, there are no conditions necessary. So for a person who learns Torah and does mitzvahs and they know what to do, the person knows what to do and has the ability to do it. So you connect when they learn Torah and they do mitzvahs, you connect to them. But a person who doesn't have that, there are no conditions. You love them unconditionally. You don't say, I'm going to wait for you to learn Torah and then I'm going to love you. I'm going to wait for you to do mitzvahs, then I'll love you. If you promise to become from, then I'll love you. A person who's not even, that doesn't even have a clue that he's Jewish, you have to love him unconditionally and bring them unconditionally, and there's closer, and show them the beauty and the warmth of Yiddishkeit. On the contrary, if they are not in touch with their Jewish identity, our great compassion brings great love until on the level of taste and fragrance they will be. When you see a person who is not even in touch with their Jewish identity, you have such a compassion for them, and that compassion brings such a great love that you're gonna do everything you can to bring them the warmth and beauty of Judaism until they become a person that has taste and fragrance, until they become a Torah-observing Jew who learns Torah and does mitzvahs. Okay, all this is part one.
Oh, no.
Okay, part two is much shorter, but it's a different measuring stick. Until now, what was the measuring stick? Until now, the measuring stick was we had three on one side and the willows on the other side. What was it about? It was about things that are revealed versus something that's concealed. The Esrog, Hadasim, and Lulav had qualities that were revealed. The Aravos had nothing that was revealed. Now we're gonna look at it differently, because there's an opinion that says that the Lulav is kosher even if it doesn't come from a date tree. Till now we said the Lulav has to come from a date tree. There's an opinion that a Lulav that comes from, I didn't know this until yesterday, there are trees that are called male trees and trees that are called female trees. A male tree will never give dates, doesn't have the ability to produce dates. So there is an opinion that says, yes. So there is an opinion that says that just like that when the Torah says that the Lulav comes from a palm tree that gives dates, it's talking about the species of date trees, not necessarily a tree that actually produces dates. So now we go to we're dividing it differently. On one side, we have the Esrog and the Hadasim, which have good deeds, because we said the Esrog has good deeds and learns Torah, has good deeds, and the Hadasim have good deeds. We're putting good deeds on one side, and on the other side, we're putting two things that don't have good deeds, which is the Lulav, that only has, if it has the date, at least it has Torah, but it definitely doesn't have, it's not known for its good deeds, and the Aravos also doesn't have good deeds. So now we're dividing it. On one side, we have two species that represent good deeds and two species that don't. And we have $1 million question. How could you take a mitzvah of the Daled Minim to take 4 species together, which is the action-based mitzvah? It's not something you're thinking about or that you're speaking about. It's an action-based mitzvah, and it's a very, very special mitzvah. Because from all the mitzvahs, what's the goal of this mitzvah, of this action-based mitzvah? To bring unity of all the Jewish people together. There is no such great mitzvah like that, an action-based mitzvah that brings unity between amongst Jewish people. And yet, half of the components necessary for this action-based mitzvah have no action, have no good deeds. The Aravos doesn't have good deeds. Good deeds represents action. Aravos has no action.
I'm not taking the third of good deeds don't present no action.
Okay, so let's try again. We have 4 species. Each one represents either someone who learns Torah and does mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are actions. That's the Esrog. The Esrog has good deeds. The Hadasim has a good smell, which represents action. That has action. That's on the good side. But then 2 of the species part of their character, they don't have good deeds. The Lulav represents someone who learns Torah and doesn't have good deeds.
Before it's just enough. They don't have to have it.
Okay, so now we're going step 2. Up until now, we said we were talking about a Lulav that we're talking about a Lulav, and we said that this Lulav comes from a tree that has dates and represents Torah and doesn't have good deeds. And it was very specific that that's what the Lulav has to be. But now we're saying that just like the willow, we're talking about the series, that we're talking about the species and not the specific willow that grows by the water. The Lulav also, we're talking about the species and not a specific Lulav that specifically has to come from a date tree. And we're saying that in any way you look at it, we're saying that both the Lulav and the Aravos, the common denominator between them is that they don't represent action. And yet, for an action-based mitzvah that's going to represent the unity of the Jewish people, we need them. It's an incredible thing.
So you said an oxymoron here. Okay.
It's an oxymoron. Perfect. It's an oxymoron. You need, for action, for example, it says, Ein kategar nasa sanegar. Aaron HaKayim, Aaron, the one, what was the story with Aaron HaKayim? When Moses didn't come down from Har Sinai, Aaron told all the Jews, gather your gold, we'll make a fire. He was waiting to stall for time until Moshe would come. But because he was part of, unfortunately, the golden calf, when it came to the para aduma, the red heifer, to burn the red heifer, which is an atonement for the red calf, he wasn't able to do it. It had to be his son. Because someone that represents the opposite you can't play both roles. You can't go against and defend at the same time. The prosecutor can't be the defender. So the same thing. So a Lulav or a willow who doesn't represent action. How are you saying that they're necessary for this action-based mitzvah to bring unity? And the answer is the same. The answer is the same. The Hadas and the Esrog, the Das and Esrog, what do? They're bringing the good deeds to the table. And you could say, oh, the Lulav and the willows, they have nothing to bring to the table. They don't have good deeds. But the Hadas and the Esrog, their job, the religious Jew, their job is to reveal the essence of the Lulav and the willow. And then the Lulav and the willow bring the essence to the table, which is even greater than a superficial action. And that's how it says that they're all mechaper for each other, and it's we all complement each other. We all complement each other. A person who's learning Torah or doing mitzvahs is not complete. Is not complete because maybe they still feel ego. Maybe they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Maybe they're just doing it like a robot. They are incomplete without the essence. And where do we see the essence? Where is the essence clear? Where is the essence clear? The essence is clear in the Jew that doesn't have the good deeds, but he doesn't have a quality, an outside quality that we could rely on. You have to dig deeper. The Esrog and the Hadasim reveal the essence of the Lulav and the Aravos, those types of Jews, and they complement each other. And this is how we bring Nachas to Hashem. And okay, so let me just catch up over here. But when we have the opportunity to bring a Jew, okay, I said that ready. There's another opinion that a palm tree is a general description. So a lulav that doesn't come from a date-bearing palm tree can still be used to fulfill the mitzvah properly and falls into the willows category. According to this classification, we have a question. How can the four species, which is an action mitzvah, be able to include those who don't have good deeds to bring to the table? The Lulav and Aravos bring a great deal because the Esrog and the myrtle and the Hadasim reveal and bring to the surface the Lulav and the Aravos essence. Okay, I'm not done the poem. I need another 10 minutes to finish, but I'll just tell you generally what it's saying. So if you think, what did you think until now? Till now, from when we learned about the Medrash, you think the willow is the lowest. The willow is the lowest because he's bringing nothing to the table. Before we spoke about the essence, right? But guess what? The willow is wonderful and great. The real question is on the Lulav. The Lulav, you're a Torah observing Jew. You learn Torah. You have Torah. And yet you don't have good deeds. You know better. The fact that the Lulav is included in the Daled Minim, that's the Chiddush. That a person who learns Torah and knows so much and doesn't put it into action, that he should be included in the Daled Minim, that's the biggest novelty. We thought the novelty is the Aravos, that the Aravos is joining the group. The biggest novelty is that a person who learns Torah his whole life and secludes himself and says, no, I don't want to have anything to do with a Jew that's not religious. That the biggest question is on a Jew that is busy with learning Torah and doesn't translate his Torah knowledge into action. Anyway, the point is that no one is perfect. We're all growing. Whoever we are, we all have room to grow. We all have to improve in our good deeds. We have to improve in our Torah. There's no excuses. Wherever we are, we have to try to improve. But we have to know that when we come together, we want Mashiach to come. That's going to happen That's going to happen when we love each other, when we're all united together. When we're all united together, then we could do anything. And it doesn't matter. This one has a little more of this. That one has a little more of that. We're all complement each other, and it's and that's how we're going to bring Mashiach when we're united. There's a mashal of a student in college who's taking a test, and you have 3 hours to take the test. 3 hours are done, and the student is still scribbling the answers. The professor says, "Listen, if you don't give me your paper right now, I'm failing you. This is it. Time is up." And he's still filling out the answers. The professor is gathering the papers, about to walk out the door. Student jumps up. He finished his test, goes to the professor. He says, "Do you know my name?" Professor says, "No, I don't know your name." He says, "Great." He takes his test paper, he shoves it in with all the other ones, and he's good to go. The professor will never know who he is. When we're all together, it doesn't matter if you have a little more, if you have a little less. You can get your paper in. When it's amongst everyone else's papers. And I'll just end with one more thing. When I was in the 9th grade, there were 12th graders that took us under their wing, and they would learn with us, and we went on Mitzvahim with them. So Mitzvahim is not just for the men, it's also for the girls. We would go to Park Slope every single Friday. We had a route of 15 Jewish-owned stores, and we would tell them what time Shabbos is, and came for a holiday, we would bring them matzah and challah and Shabbos candles, and I did this for 4 years, Baruch Hashem. And so I was a 9th grader, and I went with the 12th graders, and we knew there's one store. It was a store where this elderly woman would sell material and buttons and all different things for sewing. And we knew in this store, you don't leave anything. You just say Good Shabbos and you walk out. That's it. She's not interested in anything you have to give her. You just say Good Shabbos and that's it. So this is what I knew as a 9th grader, because I was going with the 12th graders. Anyway, the 12th graders went to seminary, went to Israel, came 10th grade, and came Sukkos time. And I'm continuing this route. And I know that we're just supposed to say Good Shabbos and walk out. It was Sukkos. It was Cholamayit Sukkos. And I went on this route with another girl, and we came with a Lulav and Esrog and Hadasim and Aravos. And this store was the last store of the route. And I turned to this friend who was living out of town. She still had to get back to Brooklyn and go take a bus. I don't know where she lived, to go back home before the second days of the holiday. And we were running late. And we walk into the store, and this elderly woman, the owner, she's helping a couple of people. We stood in the corner of the store quietly for 10 minutes, waiting for her to finish with her customers. Then we had the guts, and we said, "Look, we have a Lulav, Esrog, Hadasim, Aravos. It represents the unity of the Jewish people. Would you like to make the blessing?" And this woman, for a whole year, we never left anything. She didn't want anything. She said yes. She took the Daled Minim, and she cried like you can't believe. And it was so surprising for me and this other girl, because this woman was like a hard rock. I mean, she didn't even want us in her store, nothing. And here she completely melted. We didn't know why. We gave her that. We didn't ask any questions. She made the bracha. She knew the bracha. She made the bracha, and we left. From then on, every single Friday we came, she had such a big smile for us. She wanted everything that we gave her. She was so like a warm bubby. And we never asked any questions, and we had a great relationship. Then I went to seminary. I came back Pesach time. And I said, I want to go back on this route. I come to the store, and there's a woman there who looks not Jewish, looks African-American descent. And I said, "Oh, we used to come here. The owner, she was so nice, a lovely elderly lady. We bring Jewish stuff." And she says, "Oh, that's my mother." And I said, "Oh, she says, oh, I'm half Jewish. That woman is my mother. She's elderly now. She doesn't work here anymore. I took over the business. I'm half Jewish. I said to her, you are 100% Jewish. She says, yes, my mother told me, doesn't matter what color I am. Doesn't matter what color I am. I'm special. It doesn't matter. The reason why this woman was so, and she told us the story. The reason why this woman was so hostile was because she married out of the faith and her family disowned her. And she had this baby girl, and no one would accept her. And when I came with my friend and we said we have a mitzvah that represents the unity of the Jewish people, and I never saw. And after that, I moved here. I never saw her again. I never saw her mother again. But all I did is I told her, you're 100% Jewish. I gave her that message, gave her a hug, and look, we don't know the ripple effect of what we could do. But it was the Hadasim and the Aravos and the Lulav and the Esrog that took a woman who was an elderly woman who had no family anymore because her family disowned her. And that mitzvah, that bracha, she made that bracha. You could tell that she knew it all. And she had the opportunity to make that bracha. And that mitzvah connected her back to her Judaism. We don't know what she did after that. But you never know which mitzvah is going to touch which person because of their story. So we should all be united and realize the essence of every single Jew. That's what, and Perek Lamed Beis Tanya teaches us, how can it says, I have to love you like I love myself. How can I be expected to love someone else like I love myself? Of course I love myself more. If I'm looking at the outside, yeah, I love myself more. But if I'm looking at the inside, if I'm looking at my neshama and your neshama and your neshama and your neshama, we're talking about neshamas, then we're all one. Then I could love your neshama more than I could love. Then we're all one. We're all one. I could love someone else as much as I love myself, because it's on a neshama level. Look deeper, and realize every single Jew, the preciousness. You think that Arava, that's the most pleasant thing for Hashem. The bittul, the humility of the Anashim Pshutim. In the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the Anashim Pshutim, they didn't know how to learn. They would just recite Tehillim all day. The simplicity of the Anashim Pshutim, you're touching essence when you're dealing with a simple Jew. And when we could unite, and realize, Am Yisrael Chai, when we realize the Chelek al-Kami mamish, the essence, our essence, and the essence of every single Jew, and together when we're united, we'll bring the Mashiach.
Then we have the Shana Rabbah. Then we Yom Tov with the Rabbah.
Exactly. Hoshana Rabbah. What are we banging? The Aravos. It's the Aravos that we're banging. That goes on top of the Aron Kodesh. Exactly.
Wow.
The whole, because that's where you touch holiness.
I have to just tell you something. So
Yes.
interesting because
I just want to turn this off.
I'm becoming friendly with Tara, so she came for Yom Tov, and I told Raisy, so Raisy goes, amazing. One day maybe he wants to stay over, so whatever. She's not gonna stay over. Company I'm working. So I was just driving home one way, whatever, fine. Then she came on.
Thank you very much.
To show me her new car on Yom Tov, because but everyone's not gonna want to talk to you because we were sitting on the stoop. I said, I don't know anyone anyway, so it's like, you're perfectly fine. I said, okay, you want to be the cleaning lady? But she was a weird.
it wasn't
I
nice.
said, okay.
Honey, I didn't know.
I know. I go, okay.